Hi everyone, it's Nick. In this video I'll be showing you one of my old projects that made me nervous and that I thought I would have to redo. For this project I prepared a wooden board just slightly larger than 2 by 4 feet, made from walnut. I double-checked multiple times to ensure everything was aligned and securely fastened the blank in place. So this will be an inlay on the edge grain wood, which is generally quite challenging as the behavior of wood is unpredictable and it's very easy to get a chip, which I really don't like. I also dislike filling in chips, especially with a mixture of dust and glue. I did about 5-6 milling tests to find the feed rate and RPM that I was happy with for the quality of the cut. For walnut, it is 15 inches per minute and 12,000 revolutions per minute. As you can see, this is really slow. For cutting boards, I usually make an inlay that is 6 millimeters deep. In this case, I decided to go with 4 millimeters. For the flat end mill bit, I reduced the feed rate a bit. Usually it's 40 to 50 inches per minute, but in this case I reduced it to 30. There was still a risk of getting a chip. It took a lot of time, but luckily no chips. The milling went pretty well. The robot did a great job, but I still had to clean up some of the fuzz. And when I say some, I mean removing all the fuzz inside the pocket and any fuzz that remains on the surface. It is also necessary to remove them because they can interfere with the plug and affect the quality of the inlay. At this stage, it is not possible to use drum sanding or orbital sanding due to the same risk of getting a chip. I had to sand everything by hand and very carefully. After I found the right parameters for the inlay, I also had to play with the feed rate and RPM. For cherry wood, I set it at 20 inches per minute and 14,000 revolutions per minute. While the machine does its job, I enjoy the process of cleaning up the fuzz. Finally, the robot has finished doing all the work for me, and I can start the inlaying process. I decided not to use tight bond glue, but to use epoxy resin with low viscosity and a working time of about 40 minutes. In my opinion, the resin should work as a lubricant, reducing friction and making it easier for the inlays to fit. Additionally, having more time to apply the glue and the ability to remove excess is beneficial. Yes, the epoxy resin worked really well as a lubricant. The inlay went in too easily, and during pressing I didn't feel that it was going too tight or deep. As a result, the workpiece began to bend due to the excessive pressure from the inlays. After I cut off the first inlay, I decided to continue because the bend didn't seem too significant. At this point, there's not much to comment on. I simply continued the process, inlaying small pieces and cutting them off after the resin had cured. By the way, the waiting time between inlays was at least 24 hours. I had to make sure the resin had cured. The more plugs I added, the more the board started to bend. It's even noticeable that the board springs when I press on the inserts. But I decided to continue anyway and complete the project. If the client doesn't like it, I'll redo it. Due to the significant bending of the board, I couldn't use the CNC machine to cut off the final inlays. That's not a problem. I have a plane and I'll use the CNC machine as a workbench. After I cut out the contour and the piece began to take its finished look, I must admit that the accidental convexity added incredible charm to the piece, and it looked as if it had been planned that way. However, one issue remains. I'll have to sand everything using an orbital sander. It's time for the finishing coat. I will be covering the entire piece with epoxy resin and then a very hard 2-component lacquer. I apply the first layer, then sand and smooth out any imperfections. I repeat the same process 2 more times. Here you can clearly see how uneven the surface is after the first coat of epoxy resin. After applying the lacquer, I hand sand to remove any roughness and fine debris that may have stuck to it. Then I polish everything using car polishing compounds. So far, this is one of the longest projects I've ever done. It took about a month to make, but thanks to this order, I learned a lot and discovered a new inlay technique. I really like the final result, and I'm sure that the convex version looks much better and more impressive than the flat one. I will definitely use this technique in upcoming projects. Thank you all for watching, liking, and subscribing.